Have you ever noticed this actor's secret pattern? In almost every Western he made in the 1960s, his eyes narrow the exact same way. Feels like a coincidence, right? It isn't. And the real reason isn't what most people think. For decades, critics and fans assumed the squint was a deliberate acting choice. Film magazines in the 60s and 70s described it as his signature move, calling it the coldest stare in cinema. Directors who worked with other actors in the genre tried to instruct them to copy it, believing it was a technique that could be trained. Clint Eastwood played the man with no name across 3 films directed by Sergio Leone: A Fistful of Dollars in 1964, For a Few Dollars More in 1965, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in 1966. The character barely spoke. The squint became the substitute for dialogue, the thing audiences remembered most. Interviewers at the time asked him directly how he created that look, expecting him to describe some kind of method. The assumption stuck for years that a professional actor had engineered one of the most recognizable expressions in film history on purpose. Eastwood addressed this directly in later interviews, and the explanation had nothing to do with acting theory. It came down to 2 physical conditions on set, and most people only know about one of them. The trilogy was shot in 2 main locations. Exterior scenes were filmed in the Tabernas Desert near Almeria, in southern Spain, a location still used today for Western-style productions because of its dry terrain and open sun exposure. Interior and some studio sequences were shot at Cinesit Studios in Rome, Italy, where Leone had access to controlled lighting setups. In Almeria, there was no shade structure large enough to cover extended outdoor shoots. The sun hit the actors directly for hours at a time, and Eastwood, along with the rest of the cast, had to keep his eyes open under that glare while staying in character. Here's the part that rarely gets mentioned. Eastwood's character constantly smoked small cigars on screen, known as cheroots or cigarillos. He kept them lit for long stretches during filming, and the smoke drifted directly upward into his eyes. Combine that with the desert sun and later the studio lighting rigs used at Cinesit, and squinting wasn't a choice at all, it was simply how his eyes reacted to smoke and glare at the same time. Most retellings of this trivia only mention the sun. The cigar smoke is the detail that gets left out, and it's arguably the bigger factor, since it was constant and close range, unlike sunlight, which changed with the time of day and camera angle. On the Cinesit sets, cinematographers used strong tungsten and arc lighting to get the high-contrast look. Leone wanted deep shadows on the hat brim, sharp definition on the face. That kind of lighting sits close to the actor and runs hot and bright, which made it harder to keep eyes fully open during long takes, especially combined with the smoke already irritating them. Leone noticed something the crew almost fixed according to accounts from people who worked on the productions. Leone was known for building his shots around close-ups of the eye specifically. Rather than treating the squint as a problem to correct with better shade or fewer smoke breaks, he leaned into it, using extreme close-up framing that made the tension in Eastwood's face the focal point of entire scenes. That directorial decision is a big part of why the expression became so recognizable. It wasn't just present, it was framed to dominate the shot. The consistency across both locations is what sold the illusion of intentional design. Audiences saw the same expression in the blazing desert and in the controlled studio, so it read as a stylistic constant rather than 2 separate physical reactions to 2 different sources of irritation. Here's what happened after the trilogy. After The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly was released in 1966 and became a major box office success internationally, the squint had already been locked into pop culture. Later Western and action films through the 1970s and 80s regularly referenced or imitated it, often without the original physical conditions that produced it in the first place. No desert sun, no cigar smoke. Just actors trying to replicate a look copied from photographs and film stills. This is common in film history. A physical reaction on one set becomes a stylistic reference point for productions decades later,
in film history,
stripped of the original cause and treated purely as an aesthetic choice. So to be clear on the actual sequence of events, Eastwood wasn't told to squint by Leone. He wasn't given direction to create a tough visual signature. He was standing in direct desert sun, smoking a lit cigar for take after take, under lighting rigs designed for maximum contrast, and his eyes reacted the way anyone's would under those conditions. Leone recognized the visual value of it and built his camera work around it instead of removing the cause. That's the documented explanation, based on what Eastwood and crew members from the productions have said in interviews over the years, not a stylistic theory. Just the physical conditions of a 1960s desert shoot in Almeria and a studio set in Rome.